Alright, welcome back to another one. So, in the... Oh, why'd I open Firefox? I didn't mean to do that. In the last one, we went through and we made this very simple calculator. So if we rerun it, first number, 5, second number, 5, math. What kind of math do we want to do? We'll multiply, and it'll spit out the value of 25, which, Control-C to cancel, which by all means is nice. It works. It's pretty convenient. It's straightforward. But what if we wanted to add a GUI or a GUI, a GUI? The acronym stands for a graphical user's interface or user interface. So what if we want to make it look a little bit nicer? So that's what we're going to do today to spruce this calculator up a little bit. Real quick, I want to get rid of that. We're going to make it keep it as a pretty standard calculator. But by all means, you can do whatever you want in terms of mathematical properties and whatnot. Okay, so just full disclaimer before we begin that this is going to be a very simple GUI. I'm just going to show some of the basics, some of the simple stuff that most people would want to do. It's not going to be beautiful, it's not going to be high def, super complex, anything like that. Just straightforward, make it look a little cleaner than doing everything from the terminal. So that's where we're going to start. Go ahead and close that terminal. Okay, so step one is we need to figure out and learn about methods or functions. So in essence, what you can do is you can make what's called a function. So you can type, it starts with a def for definition, and we will call this main with parentheses and a colon, just like we're making a while loop. And then, let's see, we will print that we entered the main function. Great. For all intents and purposes, for right now, we're just going to comment this out. If you highlight a block of text and hit Control / or Control question mark, whatever, it will do a mass comment out. So now all of this is commented out. So if we run this right now, nothing happens because this is in a function or a function, method, whatever. They mean the same thing. I might swap back and forth, but just know that they call it a function. Some other coding languages call it a method. No matter what I say, they are the same thing. But anyway, so it's in a method, but we never call the method to run, so this never happens, and it just goes through here, doesn't see anything, and ends. So we would need to do a call to main. So now the code will run through, it'll see this and everything in it, whatever, skip over it, see this call to main, and then jump at the very end of our file, and then jump back up to line 3 and run everything that's in main, everything that's indented in main. So now if we run it, it'll go down, it'll hit main, jump up, print, end. And there's our print. Now we know that it succeeded. Now this is, just to make things a little nicer, this is a little trick that I learned. Some people absolutely swear by this, saying it will make all of your code so much better. To be completely honest, I don't know if it really changes anything or not, but this is just what a lot of people do. So this isn't needed, but this is a call to main just to get the ball rolling. Okay, and then we want to say if underscore underscore, two of them, name underscore underscore again, two of them, two on the front, two on the back, double equals. Now we're going to want these single quotes, underscore underscore main underscore underscore, and then a colon at the end. So if double underscore name equals double underscore main, there we go, run the main method, the main function. And then just as a peace of mind, we will say end of file. Just so we know nothing should go after this. This should be the end of our file every time. Honestly, completely honest, I don't really know what this does, but I know that it works, and there's a lot of really professional coders out there that live by doing this and say if you don't do this, you're stupid. So I'm just going to take their word for it and recommend you do the same. I usually put the comments on there around it, kind of save this block, move it from file to file, just because we don't want to put anything after it. We probably could, but we don't want to. And then that's just a little reminder of what the heck this thing does. Actually, I'm going to change that to a lowercase m, otherwise it'll bother me. Okay, so wonderful. Now we know what functions and methods are. Now let's actually do the graphics that I was talking about. So, for graphics, what we want to do is we will import a graphics library. This is a very common one. There's plenty of them out there that use different formalities, different methods, different names, whatever. Some of them might be better, some might be worse. This is the one I know. It's called TKINTER, Tkinter, or at least that's why I call it Tkinter. Kinter, Tkinter, whatever, one of those. So we want to import Tkinter, and then from Tkinter, we want to import TTK. That'll just make some stuff a little bit easier for us later. Okay, so we got our imports for Tkinter. Great. Now we want to put all of our GUI stuff in the main method. So GUI, this is where we begin. We're going to put all our GUI stuff in main. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make a window. And it will be called Tkinter dot capital T K, and then parentheses, and then we will say a window dot title, and since we're making our calculator, it would be appropriate, if I can spell it right, to call our window calculator. So beautiful, wonderful, looks good. So if we run it, what'd I do wrong? Oh, right, sorry. At the very end of our main loop, we want to put a window dot main loop. This will let Python know that this is our main loop. This is we're done with our GUI stuff. So let's try that again. There we go. So now it creates a standard window that you can resize, reshape, make it look however you want. It says, oh, sorry. It says calculator up here, and it gives you the standard minimize, go away, maximize, and exit buttons. And notice when you hit the exit button, it stops running the code as well. So, spectacular. So we now have a window. The window opens. The window can be changed, named, titled, and closed. Okay. So, whenever we add elements into Tkinter, we don't want to add elements to the window, like text button or buttons and text boxes, whatnot. We don't want to add them to the window. We want to add them to what we call a frame. So we will say frame equals our TTK dot capital F frame, and that will create a frame for us. Now the frame can take some inputs. We want the first input is where will this be attached. So we want the frame to be attached to the window. So that says the frame gets attached to the window, and then we will give it some padding of 75, sure. This will help resize the window, so that way the window is the same size as the frame, and the frame will be size 75. So again, we'll run it. Uh, Actually, I don't think that's 75, but that might. See, I'm not a pro with graphics, so I keep forgetting some stuff. Then we have to do frame dot grid. Essentially, what that does, saying frame dot grid, is it's going to take the element and grid it, or in other words, it is going to display it and show it to us in the window. Let's try that again. Okay, so there's nothing in the window right now, so it just makes it really small, really stupid, uh, but it does work. Okay, so that's fine. So we have a frame dot grid. Okie doke. So let's move on. Now we want to attach things to the frame. So what's some stuff we want to add to the frame to make a calculator? We would want to add some text boxes where we can enter our numbers and enter our mathematical symbol in order to do the math that we want. So they call it a entry, which is just a special way of saying an entry box. So we will say our first enter, so the first number we want to enter will be a TTK again, dot capital E entry. That tells it I want it to be an entry box. Add any string we want. Once again, TTK dot something. Our first argument needs to be what we are attaching it to. So the frame was attached to the window, and we wanted the entry box to be attached to the frame. Frame, spell it correctly. Wonderful. You can set a width for the entry box. Let's do 15, and then you can set a justify equals tkinter dot center. Yes, okay. So then that will justify where the text inside of the entry box gets aligned. You can align it to the center, you can align it to the right, you can align it to the left, but for here we'll just keep it aligned to center. So it's attached to the frame with a 15, keep the text centered. Lovely. Then we don't need to, but we will say first enter, insert. Insert, the first value can just be a 0. We don't care about what that is. And then we can add whatever text we want to be displayed in the entry box at the start. So instead of creating a label, we could just say first number. So that way you know that box is for the first number. You could make it say anything, or instead of that, you could keep the box blank and add like a label off to the left of it if you so desired. But this is my preferred method. The less elements you have, the better, in my opinion. And then we will say first enter dot grid because we want it to display. Okay, so now if we run it, wow, we have a first entry box. We can change it to whatever we want. It's amazing. Hitting enter, nothing really happens to it yet because it doesn't have any functionality set up, but we're getting there. Okay, so good. We have our first enter box. Now we're going to want I would recommend going through, copying this chunk, going down, pasting it. Because now, instead of first enter, we're going to have it second enter. So copy that, paste it. Second number. Spectacular. So, basically what we did, we want the exact same thing as before, but we're going to have two numbers because it's, a calculator. So now if we run that, we have first number and we have second number. Good. Big thing about coding, always copy and paste your own code when you need to. There's no reason to retype all this nonsense when you're just going to be doing the same thing. And once again, enter. Oh, I forgot I did that. Let's try this. Paste. There we go. Okay. Now instead of second enter, we will want a math enter. So we can enter in our mathematical symbol. So let's replace these so we don't overwrite stuff we wanted. We'll just, instead of second number, we'll call this math. And then everything else we should probably keep the same because we want the boxes to remain, the same size, same width, same style. I think keeping the same style amongst boxes is usually pretty nice, pretty clean. But yeah, so we have first number, second number, math. We can put whatever we want in all of these. 45, but of course they're just entry boxes. They don't actually do anything yet. We're getting to that. Okay, so what we want to do now is this is our original, well, we're going to take a step back from the GUI for a second, uncomment this. This is our original calculator. With the way GUI works in loops, we don't need it to be in a while loop anymore, so we can get rid of that. That's fine. However, this is a loop for the GUI. We need some way to call to this code and then come back every time we press a button to do calculations. So it'll make more sense as we do it, but right here we want to make this a method, just like let me get rid of this a little bit. We want to make our actual math down here a method, just like we did up here. So we'll def, and we'll just call it do math. Nice and simple. Define it the same. Everything indented underneath it is now part of do math. Okay, well, that's good. So now we can call this method to do our math whenever we do something in the GUI. Spectacular. So now let's do that. So we'll make a button called calculate, and it's going to be a TTK again, dot capital B button. Button, once again, attach it to the frame. We'll give it some text by saying comma, space, text equals, double quotes, whatever you want to call it. We'll call it calculate, just like we did before. Okay, so we made a button. We want to say calculate dot grid so we can see the button. Let's look at it. There it is. But of course, our button doesn't do anything yet. Not very convenient. So we need to give it some functionality. Now, the exact reason this works, I could not honestly tell you. Again, I'm not super familiar with the intricacies of doing graphics, but what you want to do is you'll say the name of the button, in this case, calculate, put some square brackets after it, and in single quotes, put in command. This will say, hey, this button has a command tied to it. Whenever it's clicked, we want it to do this command. And we can say that command is equal to, parentheses, something called a lambda function. Lambda, a lambda function. Sorry. A lambda function, it's basically just a way to call another method inside of something else, as far as I'm aware. So we'll have lambda colon, what do we want to call? We want to call, every time we press this button, we want to do math. So we will call do math. Okay. Now, here we run into one of our last issues before everything works the way we want it to. How do we get these numbers that we enter in our boxes into here? Because these lines take an input from the terminal, but we want to do everything in the GUI. So these lines here that we wrote before, we can just get rid of those. They won't be very useful anymore. But look, now everything is upset. Well, let's say first number. That's a good variable name. So we'll keep a first number. You can give a method what they call arguments. So do math will have an argument in it called first number. Okay, so now whenever we call do math, we can give it a number, and that number will be called, in this case, first number, which means it'll be populated all the way through here. So up here in do math, well, do math is calling to here, and do math wants our first number. So for our first number, we could say, look at our first entry box dot get. Get whatever value is in our first enter box, go to do math, and call it first number. So this will go into this will take the entry box, it'll get the value from it, it will send it to do math, which will come down here, and it'll say that number is now first number, do the math with it. Which is essentially what we were doing before. It's just the input's coming from up here, and we gotta kind of get it there. But this will work well. So, okay, first number's fixed. Well, we still need second number. Okay, well, if this needs second number, we got to get it from up here. So we can say do math, first enter, and then we can say second enter dot get, and get the value from our second enter box, pass it in, call it second number, do our math with it. And then, of course, we will also need our last but not least, our math input. And once again, we can say math enter box, get whatever is inside of it. Okay, so good. So now we get the numbers from here, we pass them into our lambda function, which is calling do math. It takes the value here, puts it into first number, and then it does the math with first number. Since we're not doing stuff with the terminal anymore, we can get rid of this print statement down here. And now that should work pretty good. Oh, actually, sorry, scratch that. We are still going to print the value to the terminal, just for now. Just to keep it a little bit on the simpler side of graphics, because again, it can get gross the deeper you go. But this should work, so let's run it. Okay, so we have our calculator window. Notice it's not asking us for a first, second, and math down here in the terminal. That's good. The first number, let's do what we were doing before. Let's give it our first number of 5, second number of 5, math, let's add them together. Calculate, your value is 10. Good. Well, now we can just change that to a minus and hit calculate again. And now it's 0. Change that to a multiply, and we get 25. Change that 5 to a 5,603. Boom, there it goes. And it's just like using the while loop before, but it doesn't ask you for your numbers again time and time and time again. Because if you want to do everything times 2, well, it's a lot easier to just change that, okay, change that, okay, change that, okay, and just keep going, rather than each and every time it'll ask you, what is this number? What is this number? What is this math? So it's a lot nicer, it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot simpler. While this calculator sure doesn't look very fancy, you know, you can change background color, you can change this image, you can change the color of the top ribbon, you can change this gray, you can change the text in the background of the button, you can change these sizes, you can really do anything you want, but this is just a really simple how to get it to work. And then as soon as you exit, it stops running the code, run it again, and it's ready to go. So yeah, now we have a fairly simple way to make a GUI for a calculator. So thanks.